Folks, the Crown Act was created in 2019 in California to ensure protection against discrimination based on race-based hairstyles by extending statutory protection to hair texture and protected styles such as braids, locks, twists, and knots in the workplace and public schools. And you heard countless stories about black folks who are harassed, ridiculed, suspended from schools, and fired from their jobs because of their hair. California State Senator Holly Mitchell introduced the Crown Act in January of 2019, and it was signed into law last summer, making California the first state to ban discrimination based on natural hair or styles like locks, braids, and twists in workplaces and public schools. Over the next hour, we'll talk about hair discrimination and celebrate those who have been able to overcome hair discrimination. And my first guest, I want to talk to her right now, of course. This is, and just so you understand, folks, how significant this is. And that is, I remember reading a few years ago, it was a story, actually about 4 or 5 years ago, a black woman who applied for a job in Virginia with the VA, impeccable credentials, goes to the interview, nails it. When she leaves, a white guy on the panel says, I'm not comfortable hiring her because of her hair. She finds out, she sues, taxpayers had to pay more than $70,000 and back wages, and she got the job. Had nothing to do with her credentials. It was all because of her hairstyle. Joining us right now is AC Eggleston Bracey, who is quite familiar with this as well. AC, glad to have you on the show. How critical is the Crown Act? And granted, it was in California, but many folks are saying this has to go across the country. In fact, there should be a national Crown Act.
Amen, amen. How are you, Roland?
Doing great.
So it's super important because hair discrimination is discrimination. When you discriminate against us because of our hair, our textured hair, which is a natural trait, and how we wear it, in locks or braids or bantu knots, you're discriminating against us, and that's not okay. That's why over a year and a half ago, on behalf of Dove, I run the beauty and personal care business for Unilever, and Dove is one of my businesses. I went out and talked to legislative officials, Noble, National Organization of Black Elected Officials, and said, you know, beauty should be inclusive. We should not be discriminated against. And look at us, we can change this. So we set out to make the change. And with that, in the audience at that time was Senator Mitchell, who is amazing, who you just talked about, who said, you know what, let me look into this. I did not know this was legal, that we could have this kind of action today. At the time, it was 2018. And she decided, she stepped up in February and said, you know what, I'm going to champion this act. And she called it the Crown Act. Crown is creating a respectful, open world for natural hair. And like you said, it should be federal legislation. So it's passed in California, thanks to Senator Holly Mitchell. Dove co-founded something called the Crown Coalition with 4 other partners, the Color of Change, Western Center on Law and Poverty, and the National Urban League. And we've been championing the Crown Act. So Holly got it done, Senator Holly Mitchell, July 3rd, just last year. And we've got 6 other states that have passed it, which we're excited about, 2 municipalities. We've got federal legislation introduced, but we got 43 more states to go. So I'm with you, Roland. It should be a federal law.
Hey, see, even within Dove, even within Unilever, were there non-black folks who didn't understand how serious this issue is? And was there an education there as well? And then when you also began to talk to these lawmakers, were they even understanding of how significant this problem is when it comes to black folks being discriminated against? Got all the talent in the world, all the education in the world, but other folks mad about their hair.
Yeah, you know, we all witnessed some of these things that you talked about, right? Andrew Johnson, more than a year ago, who was attacked, basically. He was the wrestler, remember him? In New Jersey,
Yep.
That he had to forfeit the match or get his locks cut. So we all have seen these.
And then one of those coaches literally cut his hair.
They literally attacked him and cut his hair. And there's this young woman that we work with Dove, Faith, who was sent home in the 7th grade. She shows up the first day of school with her braids, and they say, honey, come to the office. You have to go home because that's not acceptable here. So we saw all those cases and said that can't be, but a lot of people did not know that was legal. And so we've had a lot of education to do to recognize that it is not only legal and shouldn't be, but that it's not superficial. It's not a matter of changing our style. This is about changing who we are, and that's not okay. So we've had to do a lot of education. And when we do that, I would say generally, I'm really pleased people get it. People recognize that isn't okay. And I think that's why we've had so much momentum in getting the Crown Act passed in the 7 states. If it weren't for COVID and the quarantine, I think we'd have even more because, as you know, a lot of Congresses are not in session. So I'm hopeful that we will get to the 50 states and the federal legislation.
Obviously, this is Dove is a part of this. You talked about those partners as well. And so what role have they played and what kind of things have you been doing? Obviously, trying to get legislators to sponsor it. But what else has been going on to raise awareness on this issue?
Yeah, so what the Crown Coalition does is a couple of things. We support the Crown Act by building awareness of these issues. So we're able to put resources against driving awareness that is actually legal to do this discrimination and to share the progress that we make. We also help support ways to get the Crown Act legislation moving forward. So for instance, we sponsored the Crown Research Study that showed how many of us are actually affected by the hair discrimination. We found that the majority of Black women agree that we have to change our hair from our natural state to fit in the workplace, and a number of other findings from the study. So those are the kinds of things that the Crown Coalition with Dove and our partners do together to build awareness of it. And that really helps make a difference. We have forums, like I mentioned before, when I went and talked to NOBLE, National Organization of Black Elected Officials, to again drive awareness and gain momentum for more Crown Acts getting passed.
All right, then. AC, Egleston Bracey is certainly a great thing. In fact, if you see here, these are actually images of my nieces. I have 9 nieces and wearing natural hair. And look, it's something that people, again, don't understand. They don't realize how this impacts African Americans because you've done all you can to get a job, get your education, but then somebody says, I don't like your hair, so therefore we're not going to hire you. That is a fundamental problem in this country.
It is. And that's why on Crown Day tomorrow, we celebrate.
All right.
We celebrate the freedom we've gotten and we celebrate our beautiful crown. So please go to thecrownact.com, sign the petition. We're going for 100,000 signatures. We have 70. So let's make Crown Day a huge surge in those petitions. That helps get it passed in more states.
Oh,
so celebrate your crown tomorrow.
You need 30? Oh, we can send that tweet out. Trust me, we'll get those 30
All
easy.
right, the Crown Act. Let's get that 30.
All right, AC Egleston Bracey, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for the time.
Thank you very much. I want to bring my panel back in. I mean, look, this is Erica. something that, again, people don't understand. But if you go to the EEOC website, you will see the cases where people have been discriminated against because of their hair. We talked about what happened when it comes to the schools, the brother in Texas who couldn't graduate. I mean, you have these people who, again, are attacking black folks because of their hair, and white folks can walk around with mullets. They can walk around with all kind of other hairstyles, and ain't nobody got a problem.
Right. It's almost like in this country and around the globe, that default is white, right? I remember from my days in the military, this has been 20 plus years ago, but the military, I think the Army is the only one that has started to allow some level of locks to be worn, but I was not locking at that time. But I did start wearing my hair in braids because I wanted to do more natural. And I can remember getting in trouble because I was wearing my hair braided because, listen, I mean, the different kind of varieties that we have as black people to do our hair are endless, but it really is profile default to white leaning. And so to think about, as a person who has traversed through the military, through a federal career, and now I'm in the private sector, that was one thing that I've been talked about around my hair being a stumbling block for me to be able to move on to these different parts of my life. But I've been very adamant about this is the way that my hair grows out of my damn head. And I am not going to acquiesce for somebody else's comfortability, and that this has to be made into legislation so that black people, whether or not they want to wear their hair in a natural style, if they want to relax it, if they want to weave it, whatever it is that folks want to do with their hair, but specifically for black people, there has to be legislation passed in order for us to wear our hair the way that it naturally grows out of our head. Is very much so telling in these United States of America that's very much so centered in anti-blackness.
Greg Carr, look, you are, of course, a historian. It's real simple. When you look at these type of things, the reality is that this is about forcing black people to conform to white European standards.
Absolutely. And, this particular bill really is something very near and dear to my heart. My sister, for decades, Ajua Batwe Asmawa, has been one of the leading drivers of the Crown Act. In fact, she's been talking about this for the last several years. In fact, she sent me a picture of, she was standing there with Gavin Newsom and the other sisters when he signed it a year ago tomorrow, and she was coordinating then with New York. And so one of the things Ajua always talks about in this work to get this Crown Act passed is that the bill itself expands the definition of race to include those traits, characteristic traits like hair that we have. So really what that Crown Act is doing exactly what you said. It's kicking the door in on standards of how we are in the world. And so, again, I mean, and I have no doubt that there will be federal legislation because Ajua is very close to Senator Cory Booker, to Cedric Richmond, our brother on the House side, and the CBC. They are going to get this legislation. And finally, as Erica said, I remember some of the young sisters who were in ROTC, Army ROTC, Erica at Howard, and that battle they used to have to fight just to wear braids. And to hear you say that that's still the only branch that is kind of evolved means that there's a lot more work to do even on that side.
Reese, the reality is this here. People love talking about, we're Americans, we're all free, but black people still have to get bills passed just to be black.
Absolutely. And really what's so disturbing about this is the children, the students. I mean, we've seen several instances. That one was mentioned about the wrestler, but there was a young gentleman who was he wasn't allowed to walk into graduation because of his hair. We've had little black girls who have, been sent home and traumatized. And it's sending the absolute most disgusting white supremacist message that your hair as it grows out of your head is not acceptable by societal standards. And so I'm very grateful for this kind of legislation. I want to shout out State Representative Leslie Herod down in Colorado. She was very instrumental in pushing that, in passing the Crown Act in Colorado. There's so many black women and men across the country that are really championing this cause. And as Dr. Carr mentioned, in the Senate and the House, the Crown Act has been introduced. And so this is one of those moments, as we're having this racial reckoning, this is one of those moments where we can tackle this specific issue of hair discrimination.
Absolutely.
And win.
Absolutely, folks. Going to go to a break. We come back. We're going to talk to Miss America 2019. She made it perfectly clear. She had the right to wear her hair the way she wants it. She's next on Roland Martin Unfiltered. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. All right, folks, in 2019, this happened when Nia Imani Franklin was named Miss America 2019, traveled around the country for a year. And while doing so, she made it perfectly clear, I am going to wear the hair the way I choose to do so. She joins us right now. Nia, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
Been a while since I've seen you at NABJ in Miami, and so glad to have you here. Let's talk about, again, this being the one-year anniversary tomorrow of the Crown Act. How important is that for you as a black woman?
It is paramount that this was passed into law and that we're celebrating a year of this amazing law that is well overdue. As a black woman that has worked in corporate America, that has worked in the professional settings, it's always been a challenge. And it's always sometimes felt like, what I'm naturally been given is not what the standard is or what the normal is and what's accepted. So to have this be something that's a law, I think it just sends a message to people who don't accept black people's hair the way it is and the way it grows naturally and who want to suppress our blackness. I think it's a clear sign that we are exactly who God made us to be, and we're happy to look the way we look, and we're proud of how we look.
Did you have to deal with folks while you were Miss America, as you travel around the country, who were like, you really shouldn't wear your hair like that?
Well, you know what? I didn't deal with that so much. But what I did deal with, and what I do think is so disappointing for so many people in the entertainment industry, people that are on camera who are in front of people speaking and need to look presentable and look a certain way, look professional. What I think is kind of sad is that because, we are the minority, there are not a plethora of stylists that know how to do our hair. And so if anything, I dealt with going to photo shoots with my natural hair or with braids or even with extensions, and people wouldn't know what to do. And, being the first Black Miss America since 2011 or 10, they weren't ready. I don't think they were ready for someone who looked like me. They didn't have the sponsorships set up for a black person to do my hair. It was just kind of like figuring it out on my own. So if anything, that's something that I know a lot of actresses as well deal with and performers, not having someone to do their hair when they get to set, models too. And that can be very frustrating, and it makes you feel like, why don't you have somebody that can do it all? If they're good at their job, they should be able to do it all.
Well, in fact, a lot of television anchors have talked about that, and we're now seeing more black women who are on the air choose to go to natural styles. But I remember there was one anchor out of Houston. She talked about how she went to her general manager to ask permission. I mean, that's crazy.
It's crazy. We should not have to ask permission to look the way we naturally look, and we choose to look, more importantly.
So we talked about this. Of course, we're seeing it in some states, but I assume you absolutely believe that there should be National Crown Act. That this should be, first of all, you shouldn't even be damn discrimination because of what the hell is how somebody's hair looks like. But the reality is, we're used to having to pass laws. Today, the 56th anniversary of the Civil Rights Act. This is the reality of being black in America.
It is the reality, and it's sad that it does have to be that way. We should not have to pass laws to look the way we want to look, and especially to look the way we look naturally when it doesn't hurt anyone, it's not harming anyone. So it's very disappointing that this even has to be a law, but we have to do what we have to do, and we have to look at the reality. And I absolutely 1000% believe that this needs to be a national law because people are dealing with it all over, and not even in just America. We see this globally, and, wanting and the desire by European people to want us to look like them, to want us to conform to what those European standards of beauty are. And that's just not acceptable.
All right, then. Nia Imani Franklin, Miss America 2019. We certainly appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right,
Bye.
you take care. Here's the thing here, Reese, that what she just said, we've heard Gabrielle Union talk about this here, the difficulty of finding folks who can actually do black hair. Now we're talking about economic opportunities. Now we're talking about being frozen out of that. I mean that. So on one hand, the Crown Act deals with discrimination, but now we're talking about even in these spaces where we are supposedly getting opportunities, we still are dealing with that because you got folks who kind of like, I'm not used to this hair, and that what that says is the industry are used to white women.
Right. I mean, there are institutional barriers even for Black stylists who would obviously know what to do with the Black woman's hair, even getting the ability to go on sets. That's another thing that actresses and Black women in particular have talked about. And so there are institutional barriers that prevent Black artists from the same access to who could do white people's hair too, by the way. They don't just only do Black people's hair. But there's also this notion that the value of Black women and our hair and our appearance isn't as valued as a white woman. And so if you are an acclaimed makeup artist or an acclaimed hairstylist, you don't have to have that range in order to actually do your job, regardless of what the texture of a person's hair is. And that's certainly something that, adds additional burdens on these actresses of having to either do their own hair or having to bring their own people on that other white actresses do not have to experience.
Look, that's just real. And now what we're getting into here, Greg, is economics. And again, we're talking about with the Crown Act, we're talking about, again, preventing Black folks from making a living. We talk about, so you're making a judgment on the hair of Black people. Then even if they do get to wear their natural hair, you've been locking out people who know how to do hair. And so really what you should be saying is, wait a minute, if you got Black women or Black men, or if you got hairstylists who can do Black hair, white hair, so you got white women who can't do Black hair, that means that you don't have a skill set.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we know one thing about capitalism. Watch how many non-Black people, watch how many white people go out and learn this skill when this thing becomes, the demand exceeds Black community. Let's be very clear. Number one, Black people have been doing their hair since the first people on the planet. I love the way my brother Kwame Ture, when we would see Kwame Ture, we'd be sitting around with him. He said, I don't understand why y'all keep calling this thing a perm when you straighten hair. No. The perm is the hair that you came out of your mother's womb with. That's a temp. In other words, so Black people, but Black people have been doing our hair since we've been on the planet, which means we're the first ones to do hair. And we were doing it on the plantations. We were doing it in the palaces. We've done it everywhere. That's number one. So when you get to Annie Turnbull Malone, Trumbo Malone, when you get to Madam C.J. Walker, you're talking about Black women who not only did hair, but who built businesses. Black hair is the huge businesses. Ask our friends from Southeast Asia how big the business is in Black hair care. So what's going to happen now as we see women and men returning to this natural thing? It's not going to be just the celebrities who demand Black stylists, like Solange, for example. One of my dear brother, Larry Crow in Ohio, his daughter, Shani Crow, travels with Solange from time to time, does her hair. But these celebrities, these entertainers, like, no, my people come with me. It's not going to be just that. To your point, finally, Roland, it's going to be attacking these laws that exclude Black people, mostly Black women, from doing other Black women's hair.
Right.
The braiders from the Caribbean and West Africa, who they try to license differently now all over the country. The high school students who they say you got to get a cosmetology license. You've been braiding hair since you were 6 years old, and now you got to get a piece of paper from somebody. The real war is going to be, as you say, the economic war. And that's where we're going to have to press the pedal to the metal.
Oh, absolutely. All right, folks, when you talk about, again, how this impacts us, I want to bring in my next guest. Montrell and Faith Finity, they've had to deal with this issue in terms of this battle over hair. Glad to have both of you on the show. Montrell, as well as Faith, how you doing?
We're doing good. Hi.
Faith, Faith, you got a pretty good name, so I'm trying to see right here. Where is it? So my niece right there, that's Faith Gabrielle. So get a shot here. So I got a Faith in my family as well. So the one right there, who actually a student at Howard University, who I had to make sure she took Greg's class when in her freshman year. So they had her assigned to somebody else. I was like, nope. I need y'all to handle that. So let's talk about it. Montrell, what have you and your daughter, what have y'all had to face when you talk about hair discrimination in this society?
Yes, Faith was at school wearing her braids for 2 years. And over the summer, the school implemented a policy saying no grade.
Hold tight 1 second. Hold on 1 second. Hold on. So we're getting some feedback. So guys, if y'all can go ahead and fix that and then let me know to make sure we're not getting that. So I think what's happening is their audio is up. So just let me know once that is fixed. Okay, and so I want to bring up another guest. So let me know when that is fixed. Staff Sergeant Chauncey Logan, U.S. Army, fought the military to keep her locks, and she lost her rank because she refused to cut them. Sergeant Logan, how you doing? I can't hear you. I think you're on mute. Just take it off of mute, please.
Yep, there we go. Hi.
There we go. So you lost your rank because you refused to cut them? What happened?
No, I actually didn't lose my
Okay,
rank.
I'm sorry.
My punishment was to lose my rank and be expeditiously separated from the military for not cutting my hair. And I actually end up fighting that because at the time I was actually okay with leaving the military, but I had been in for 15 years. Mm-hmm. And my fear was that after these 15 years, if I get kicked out of the military for this, I'm going to lose my GI Bill. And that was my reason for fighting. More of my fight was to keep the benefits that I had earned for 15 years.
I mean, I remember this because I had a general on my News One Now show who was trying to deal with the Army on this. And so how long ago was this?
This was in 2015.
2015. And so how long was this fight that you had with the U.S. Army over your hair?
It lasted about 8 months.
8 months. And so over the 8 months, so what did they threaten you with? And then what was the resolution?
Officially, I was threatened with being reduced in rank and being put out of the Army. And unofficially, there was the harassment that came because I wouldn't cut my hair. The disrespect, the ostracizing by my senior leaders. Because of this decision I made that actually had nothing to do with them and everything to do with me and this crossroad that I came to with the military. The resolution was I ended up putting my hair in rope twists, my locks and rope twists, and that was determined to be within regulation, which blew my mind. It was sort of me showing them, look, my hair is in locks, but my hair is not messy. It presents a professional appearance, and it looks exactly like these authorized weave styles that so many female soldiers are wearing.
Wait a minute, hold up. So you're wearing locks, but this other, so essentially a weave is fine.
A weave, Senegalese braids, micros, all of this is fine, but my rope twists with my locks that looked exactly like it by regulation weren't authorized. Which, like I said, it blew my mind.
And so it got resolved by when you change it to that, it was like, okay, then fine, you're fine.
Yes.
And when that happened, were there other black women in the military who were fighting with you? Or did they say, you know what, I can't fight this, I'm just going to go ahead and change my hair?
The majority, yes. The majority cut their locks off. And in this fight, I was like, look, we have to stand together. You cutting your locks off, this blind conformity, which I understand others' reasons for doing it. They have families they have to support. At this time, it was just me. I didn't have anybody that I needed to support. So it was easier to stand in the fight.
Were there, so you're going through this, and first I want to bring in Erica. Erica, you served in the military, and so you got a question for Staff Sergeant Logan?
I do. So I read about your story, and I just want to salute you, sister. I'm a veteran from the Air Force, but definitely want to salute you. Can you talk about, so you talked about kind of like, for those people who don't know about the UCMJ, the uniform, the military code of justice. Can you talk about, outside of the front-facing reprimand that you faced, could you talk about that intimidation and sometimes not being able to go up for promotion zones, some of those things that people really don't see or hear about, because the military is very much so clothed in very much so keeping those matters very much so contained inside of their military installations. Can you walk the viewers through that?
And while you're doing that, and while you were doing that, we're actually showing a photo that the Root ran that showed your hair being in compliance. But go ahead, Sergeant
Okay.
Logan.
Absolutely. So, like I said, I had my official charges, which were disobeying a military order to cut my hair, which is actually not a legal order to give for a female soldier to cut their hair. But that was the order that I was given, and that was the order that I refused because it was an unlawful order. I think the problem most leaders had with my decision was that they felt that I was throwing away 15 years and when I can just cut my hair. And that's what I kept hearing, just cut your hair, just cut your hair. And I'm like, it's bigger than me. This won't change if we continue to just cut our hair when we are in regulation. If you look at us face on and in uniform, we look exactly like everybody else with these authorized uniforms, the women with locks in their hair. And as far as that hurt me, it hurt me for promotion. And that is my biggest regret from fighting this, is that the Article 15, which I was found guilty of the Article 15, so therefore it's in my record. And so each year, including that year 2015, that was my first look to be promoted to E7. This is what they see in my record, is this soldier's refusal to follow orders. You don't promote somebody that refuses to follow orders. Yeah. And that stuck with me. Each year they looked at my record, they saw this same Article 15 and the evaluation that came from that. So when I talk to others about this fight, and they thank me for it, and I'm grateful for the impact that it's had, but the negative impact that it had on me was that I can't get promoted now.
It's coming at a personal cost.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Have you heard from any Congressional Black Caucus members? Have you heard?
I have not.
Reese, you have a question for Sergeant Logan?
Yeah. Have you reached out to any of the Congressional Black Caucus or your elected representatives to see if they could do anything about the situation? Because this is the kind of thing that I would think that they would get involved in if they were aware of it.
I did not. During the Article 15, that was that whole situation was a test of my faith, because I had to deal with that alone. Everybody around me kept saying the same thing: just cut your hair, just give in. So I was standing alone during the Article 15 proceedings, and after everything was said and done, to be honest, I didn't have any more fight in me. It was the biggest fight of my life, of my career. And I had no reserve left in me to move forward with rectifying all the negative blowback from that situation.
Yeah. Well, I'm so sorry you had to deal with that.
Well, I certainly think that as this effort moves to try to make the Crown Act national, I would certainly hope that CBC members reach out to you and ask you to testify, and also bring military leaders and hold them accountable for why you're being denied. It has nothing to do with your work ethic. It has nothing to do with what you do as a member of the military. It's all because of your hair.
All because of my hair. Only my hair.
Staff Sergeant Chauncey Logan, we appreciate you sharing your story with us and Roland Martin Unfiltered in this Crown Act special.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thanks a bunch. We're going to bring back in Montrell as well as Faith. I think we got their, let me know when they're back in. We got their audio all taken care of. Greg, I mean, what we just heard, I mean, think that this is the thing that people don't understand. Black people have to fight for our rights, and what it does is it exacts a personal toll on the freedom fighter, and that's not what she should have to be worrying about.
Brother, Staff Sergeant Logan, I mean, listening to her and then listening to the conversation that Erica and Reese, y'all were having, and Erica, as you walk through that military code, this sister took an L the way Kurt Flood took an L almost in Major League Baseball. Everybody's going to benefit, but she takes the L. And while we were talking, I got a text again from Ajwa Asmawah, who worked on the Crown Act, one of the major forces pushing it to get passed. And she sent me a reminder that in April 2014, Marsha Fudge, her soror, they both Deltas, sent a letter to the Secretary of Defense like, hey, man, what you going to do about this Army regulation about this hair? And it seems to me that this is another reason why Roland Martin Unfiltered is so important. This is something that can be addressed. I'm sure Staff Sergeant Logan can be called to the Hill, and these sisters and brothers in the CBC will put her there. And yes, we will make progress in all the branches of the military, but in her specific case, she's not Kurt Flood. Fix this, Air Force. Because that's wrong.
And I'm definitely going to reach out to some CBC members and let them know specifically about Staff Sergeant Chauncey Logan, because, again, the fact that her career is still being hurt as a result of this is shameful. Control room, do we have Montreal and Faith? Okay, we're still trying to get their audio straight. All right, folks, going to go to a quick break, and we'll come back. More with our special on the first anniversary of the Crown Act right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. All right, folks, joining us right now is Felicia Hill. She's the Economic Justice Project. She's with the Economic Justice Project for the Lawyers Community for Civil Rights Under Law. Felicia, when you heard that conversation we just had with the staff sergeant, and I mean, she said, I just had no fight left in me. Have you heard this from other black women who have tried to fight employers and other companies when it came to their hair?
First of all, thank you for having me on tonight, Roland. I'm happy to be here to discuss this very critical issue with your audience. And it's really important to understand that legislating Black women's hair is as old as American pie, and its negative effects go back even further than that. And the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law has fought to eradicate discrimination and racism on a number of issues, including on hair discrimination issues. And the reality is that women have been litigating and fighting to have their hair not be the basis for employment-based discrimination, housing discrimination, education discrimination, and in other areas of public access. So this is not a new issue. It is an ongoing issue, and it's an issue that we need to continue to fight and push for change in.
And I remember a few years ago going on the EEOC website. I mean, how significant is this? I mean, are we talking about a lot of cases? And where are the spaces where this is actually happening?
So there aren't a significant number of cases, but those cases that are being litigated are very impactful, because what the courts are doing is they're misinterpreting legislation, particularly Title VII, and they're saying that those protections are not in place for women in the workplace or for Black people in the workplace, so that employers can now use hair as a proxy for race discrimination. So this is a very critical issue to fight and to push against, because the courts are essentially allowing employers to discriminate against their employees on the basis of race, but using hair as the excuse to get around that. We also see it in the education space. There are stories that have been circulated around the internet that have made national media headlines about students having to cut their hair off, students not being permitted to march in their own graduations because they wear their hair in a locked style. We've also heard about children being shamed or put out of classrooms or missing days of school. So it's not just in the workplace. We're also seeing it in the classroom setting. We're seeing it in housing-based discrimination. It's being used broadly in this country. You know what? I'm sitting and looking on Twitter. I'm looking on our YouTube channel, and I got some idiot who was saying, oh, there are more important issues than this. But the reality is
this is impacting black people. It's impacting black women. It's impacting our children in high school, in middle schools, in elementary schools, where you have white education leaders making arbitrary decisions about the length of hair, and these things are happening. And so I'm sorry. And we're seeing a whole new generation. Because you got to understand, the previous generation operated by white European standards. I remember when Earl Graves ran Black Enterprise. He made it clear that if you were an intern at Black Enterprise, you could not wear locks. He said, not allowed on Wall Street. It's not going to be allowed at Black Enterprise. But we're seeing a whole new generation wearing their hair differently, and we better brace ourselves for opportunities being denied because of that.
So I think it's really important in the conversations that our nation is having around we're having so many critical and long overdue conversations about systematic racism. And rightfully so, people are focusing on policing and violence against Black bodies. But the reality is that there is discrimination in so many other areas and aspects of the Black existence in America. And one of the ways that we have seen this perpetrated is against hair. Hair has been legislated in this country since 1786. And so it's important for people to understand that while this might not seem like the most pressing issue today, it is an issue that has been around since the founding of this country. And if we don't force legislatures to take this issue seriously and to ban hair-based discrimination as race-based discrimination, then we are going to continue to face barriers to employment, barriers to housing, barriers to education, and it is going to cost the Black community not only billions of dollars in lost opportunities through missed wages, through missed promotions, through lack of access to employment, but it's also costing the Black community a loss of dignity.
Absolutely. Felicia Hill with the Economic Justice Project, the Lawrence Committee for Civil Rights Under Law. We certainly appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Roland.
All right, let's go back to Montreal and Faith. Montreal and Faith, do you hear me?
Yes.
There we go. All right. So, Montreal, you were saying what your daughter experiencing wearing her braids for 2 years at a school.
Yes, she had been there wearing her braids for 2 years. And over the summer, the school implemented a policy saying no braids. So when she showed up for school, they sent her with a note saying no braids. And we just could not believe it. She had made the cheerleading team. She was going to play volleyball. She was ready for her 6th grade year. And they said, because of your braids, you cannot come back to school. And my husband and I just felt helpless. We didn't know what to do. It devastated our family. We went through.
What? Okay. What was the rationale for no braids? So she wearing it for 2 years, and all of a sudden, somebody goes, we don't like braids.
Yes, the conversation with the principal was, she said, well, it's distracting. They're flipping it. They're twisting it. It's distracting. And that, again, blew our minds because other kids have ponytails that hang in front of, our kids' desks. They flip their hair all the time. It was really discrimination. And Faith cried. She said, Mom, I don't want to change schools. I want to stay with my friends. I like my school. And I said, Faith, I have to stand up for you. This is discrimination. There is no way I can allow them to do this to you.
Faith, when your mom told you that, you obviously that seriously bothered you, but have you now come to understand why that mattered?
Yes, because I could have to school if I stayed. I understand that I had to go.
And also, again, you wore it for 2 years, no issues, no problems. And was it the principal's decision or was it the school board's decision?
It was the principal's decision. They sat with the faculty and made a policy over the summer implementing no braids, and that we just could not understand why weren't they proactive in contacting the children that it was going to affect the most about the braids. It wasn't any color. It wasn't long. What was the issue with the braids? And they just could not convey to us what the problem was. It just said, no, we just don't want braids here. And that really upset us and just made our family go through so much suffering and pain because of that. But we thank God for the Crown Act and the Crown Coalition because this is just a blessing for Black children all over the world. This is going to end the hair discrimination for them.
Faith, when your mom said, thank God for the Crown Act, you started smiling.
I did because I'm really blessed to have the opportunity to go to security law that
I think we're breaking up there, so we can barely hear you there. But look, I hate the fact that y'all have had to go through that, but the reality is we have a whole generation of black folks who've had to fight, whether it was Ruby Bridges going to school, whether it was Brown versus Board of Education, whether it's you having to battle folks there. And is that hair policy still in place at that school?
No, the judge ordered them to take it down, and the school rescinded it. And she's at a new school. She no longer attends school there.
All right, then. Montrell and Faith, we certainly appreciate it. Thanks a bunch, and good luck.
Thank you.
All right, folks. This is, let me bring back Reese, Erica, and Greg. And this is the nonsense, Erica. A young black girl should not have to be worrying about going to court just to be able to wear her hair going to school. And this is, for all these people who don't understand what it means to be black in America, this is what it is. This is the level of stress. This is what hurts black people economically, that we have to literally fight just to be black, just to coexist.
Absolutely, Roland. And I'm so glad that you had that mother and daughter on, and you then brought in Ruby Bridges, and that, that whole decision around integration was just 6 decades ago. The aggressions that black people are constantly met with on every end are non-ending. And it is, as you pointed out, and you have just showcased here on Roland Martin Unfiltered, it doesn't just begin at adulthood. It doesn't begin in high school and middle school. It begins from the time that we actually enter into the earth. And I can remember, and I'm sure all of us have stories, being children. We were a military family, so we moved every 3 years. And I can remember being placed in the back of the classroom, being very adamant about not sitting in the back of the classroom. But it was because I was in a classroom that was largely non-black, and that because I looked opposite of everyone else, the teacher did not want to have to deal with me. So then you have all of those different issues that are blended into some of the other pieces that we're facing as well. So I think that it is wholly important, particularly that people do understand that the fight wasn't just at one point in time, that it definitely still continues. And that the fact that the Crown Act has given some level of respite for this young child is why we do have to continue to push and fight, even if something seems as small for other people as the way that we wear our hair. It definitely does matter.
Well, like I make it clear to people, what it means to be black in this country is to fight. Joining us right now is California State Senator Holly Mitchell, the person who led this effort in the California Assembly. Glad to have you back on Roland Martin Unfiltered, Holly.
Great to be with you, Roland. Thank you so much. It's hard to believe it was just over a year ago we talked about the introduction of Senate Bill 188 in the California State Senate, and here we are celebrating the 1-year anniversary.
Talk about that, because one, it wasn't easy, and what did you also learn and see? Did you realize how widespread this was and how many people have really been adversely impacted by hair discrimination?
No, to be perfectly honest, as a black woman who's been locked for 16 years now, I was even struck sitting in my loctician's chair, beginning to tell them about the concept of the bill, and everyone in the entire salon had a story. I have not met a woman who hasn't stopped me in the airport or whatever when they realized that we authored the Crown Act that hasn't had a personal, painful story to tell. And I would add, I saw a bit of the show a moment ago where people talked about, well, it's just hair and it's not that big a deal. It's more than hair. It's about power and control. And other people, there's no other group of women who can be told how to wear their hair in the workplace. No other group. So, people shouldn't trivialize this as it's just about hair and hair can grow back. It's about power and control and dominance.
White women out there talking about no one should tell a woman what to do with her body have the folks who are pro-choice have they aligned with you and others to understand this? And are you seeing those allies also work to try to get this implemented in other states across the country, but also in Congress?
So, I think the reality is, and what I chose to use it, and the language I used in committee and when I presented it on the Senate floor, was it was an opportunity. It was a teachable moment, as my mother would say. It was an opportunity to teach people, for me to stand with pride and help people understand that hair texture is a race-based trait, and that a Euro standard of beauty and what's acceptable in the workplace was no longer acceptable to me. That as a woman serving in the state legislature, I'm the only Black woman in the California Senate, only the fourth since statehood. I was going to use my platform and my bully pulpit to educate and to create a space where we could help people understand. While the bill got no votes, we did have an abstention, and we had questions about what constitutes a race-based trait. People ask me about, well, now what's a conk? I mean, it got deep, Roland, as you can certainly appreciate. But again, it was an opportunity that I took because I was sick and tired of hearing the stories about Black girls being sent home from school and suspended because their hair was deemed a distraction to other people. That was unacceptable to me. And so, yes, we are thrilled that California was able to kick this off a year ago tomorrow, and that I think now 7 states have Crown Acts, and we're going to have to take it to the congressional level. But this isn't the first example where the states have to really push the conversation and push the issue to get to the attention of the federal government.
Questions from my panel. I'll first start with Reese for Senator Holly Mitchell.
Hi, Senator Mitchell. I met you last year, actually, at Essence at the Crown event that OWN Network did. So it's such a good it's so good to see you again, and congratulations on your success with this. Black Women's Equal Pay Day is coming up in August, and it seems like each year it gets later and later. I think this year is 61 cents on the dollar. Hair discrimination is an economic issue. Do you see that this bill allows for that kind of particular, grievance that people have? A woman can document or can attest to being discriminated against in their hair, and perhaps how that's helped them back in their career. Do you see any connection there as to protections for that group of people?
Absolutely. That's the target group of people that we focused the bill on. We expanded the bill to make sure that we impacted the education codes too, so kids in school would be protected. But that's absolutely who we're protecting. I think we have a new COVID-19 related conversation to have now about those in the field, African-American women who are natural hair practitioners, who because of COVID-19 have had to close their shops, and how they are going to now survive in terms of, building that industry and supporting that critical economy in our community. And so I think the conversation has now expanded to not just those of us who want and won the right to wear our natural hair in the workplace, but those practitioners who have built careers over teaching us how to care for our natural hair, who've developed products that we can use on our natural hair. We've got to make sure that they are supported as well.
A question from Erica.
Yes, and hi, Senator. Thank you so much for the incredible work that you have done and that you are continuing to do and pioneer. My question for you would be, in terms of other organizations coming into the fold with you, with not only support of their platform with dollars, are there any other of those, or what other organizations would you name that really need to come into the fold to help bring this message of the Crown Act beyond the state legislatures, so that we can really get it into the national spotlight?
Well, it has been amazing. First of all, the Crown Coalition, spearheaded by Dove, included, the National Urban League, the Western Center on Law and Poverty, a number of organizations. For example, it was important for us to hire Black women with natural hair to actually lobby the bill here in California. But it's amazing to me to see how this just took off. The Links, International Links, just had a Zoom event where they talked about it. I've heard at the American Bar Association this year, in their HR track around training, they had a whole workshop and a whole track on the Crown Act. And so HR professionals are being trained. Attorneys who focus on employment law are being trained. And so even though we are making incremental baby steps in terms of expanding the law, the culture shift has begun to happen. And so, we wouldn't have the law if we had understanding HR professionals and academic professionals who didn't write dress codes and school policy and our places of employment that were so restrictive. And so it's been amazing to me that as the bills are beginning to expand, as Congress continues to deliberate, these other institutions are beginning to talk about it and help create the culture shift that will be required to really affect the kind of change we all want to see.
Final question for Senator Holly Mitchell, Greg Carr.
Thank you, Roland, and thank you, Senator Mitchell. Lord, they asked you about conks. I'm glad they didn't talk about lace fronts and jerry curls, but and it's good to see you.
Let me say this. Let me just say this. The whole point of the Crown Act was about choice.
Right.
It was about, when I decided to run for public office with my locks, I knew that the constituents in my district were going to vote for me based on what was inside my head, not how I choose to wear my hair.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole point of this bill and this movement is to not put our sisters down who make other choices.
Yep.
It's to empower us all to have the personal choice to do what I deem appropriate for my own hair.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you about. Actually, thank you, because when you talk about this culture, and it's good to see, as I said, my sister Ajwa sent me the pictures as y'all was standing there with the governor getting it signed. In reading the legislation, when you amend race or ethnicity to include all traits historically associated with race, knowing that the courts over the years, and again, Roland talked about Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, were interpreting it very narrow. They said afros. No. How much of what this work that you all are doing is about making sure we have the freedom to be who we are in our Black bodies, while hair is in front? What you've really done is reverse engineer the definition of race, or is that really what you're after? Oh,
absolutely. You hit it right on the head. Absolutely. Okay. We took this opportunity to clearly define hair as a race-based trait, to begin to put a crack in that, as you said, narrowly defined interpretation. That's exactly what our motivation was. And so when people say it's just hair, what's the big deal? It's really more than that. In that picture where you saw the governor signing the bill, one of the first signing ceremonies he conducted as a still very new governor then, in his signing, as he signed the bill, he said, this isn't about hair. And he, from a white male's perspective, talked about his understanding. And what that said to me, and I looked at him and said, I appreciate you. That lets me know you see me for who I am and all that I bring to the equation as a state senator, as chair of the budget committee, all that I do as an advocate on behalf of my constituent and my people, Black women. You hit the nail right on the head. That's exactly what our ultimate motivation was.
Appreciate you, Senator.
All right, then. State Senator Holly Mitchell, we certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Roland.
And congratulations.
It's a pleasure to be with you.
Yes, indeed. All right, folks. So we got to put this together. I was sitting there going, how should we end this? We had great conversations, great guests. So I sent a text to my girl, India Ari. And I said, India, would love to have you participate in this. And she said, I got something I want to do. And here it is.
I am India Ari. This is Joe Cross. And this is my jam. Hey. Little girl with the breasts and curl. Age 8, I got a Jerry curl. 13 and I got a relaxer. I was the source of so much laughter. 15 when it all broke off. 18 and I went all natural. February 2002, I went on and did what I had to do. Because it was time to change my life, to become the woman that I am inside. 97 dreadlocks all gone. I looked in the mirror for the first time and saw that, hey, I am not my hair, I am not the skin, I am not your expectation, no. I am not my hair, I am not the skin, I am the soul that lives within. Da 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 da. Good hair means curls and waves. Bad hair means you look like a slave. At the turn of the century, it's time for us to redefine who we be. You can shave it off like a South African beauty, cut it on lock like Von Molly. You can rock it straight like Oprah Winfrey. If it's not what's on your head, it's what's underneath. Then say, hey, I am not my hair. I am not the skin. I am not your expectations. No, I am not my hair. I am not the skin. I am the soul that lives within. Does the way I wear my hair make me a better person? Does the way I wear my hair make me a better friend? Oh, does the way I wear my hair determine my integrity? I am expressing my creativity. So consider this for a moment. This song is actually not about hair. It's about self-definition and how we define each other. So there's a difference in identifying with something and identifying as something. And so in this song, I'm saying that I identify with my external characteristics, with my blackness, with my beauty, but I identify as my soul. And the truth is, racism and discrimination is actually born out of identifying people as their external characteristics. And so we needed legislation to say that people can wear their hair however they want to at work. Sad that we need it, glad that we have it. And so, this is our song. I am not my hair. I am not the skin. I am not your expectation. No, no. I am not my hair. I am not this skin. I am the soul that lives within.
India texted me and she said, that's called a songversation. See, everybody can't do that, Greg Carr.
Everybody ain't able, Roland.
Everybody ain't able.
Roland, nowhere on the ball, nowhere on this planet is it going to be an hour devoted not just to the Crown Act, but to the idea of being African in the modern world in the way that we just saw it. Y'all get this in here and support Roland Martin Unfiltered. Because not only you're not going to see that anywhere, everybody, look, man, I'm sure your comments must be blowing up. I ain't on social media. Tears, laughter, everybody, man. Everybody ain't able, brother.
That is the case there on YouTube and Facebook and Periscope, and so we certainly appreciate it. Go to my iPad, please. Also, a shout out to Kelly Joy Richardson Lawson, as well as Orlena Blanchard. They, of course, they over the Joy Collective. They're the ones who worked on this campaign for the last year with Dove and Unilever, and so big shout out to them as well. You were talking about, Greg. They brought her on to work with this, and so again, Black-owned company. And go back to it. You see, go back to my iPad. You see Adweek, the 6th fastest growing agency in the world. That's Joy Collective. So great congratulations to Kelly and Orlena as well for their work. Folks, we want you to support Roland Martin Unfiltered, what we do here. Again, we keep it real, keep it black. Nobody else is doing this here. Nobody. And that's why we created our own platform. This is not a black targeted platform. This is a black owned platform. So when Orlena told me about the Crown Act, I said, she's like, could we come on the show? I said, they don't come on the show. We could do a whole hour. Why? Because I don't have to ask anybody. We do this. And so we want you to support us in what we do. So please contribute. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our followers to contribute $50 or more a year. If we do that, we're completely funded. We don't have to sit here and sweat advertisers or things along those lines. Y'all go to Cash App, $RM Unfiltered. PayPal, paypal.me/R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo.com is /RM Unfiltered. You can also send a cashier's check money order to New Vision Media Inc., NU Vision Media Inc., 1625 K Street Northwest, Suite 400, Washington, D.C., 2006. There are more than 4,000 of you still watching on YouTube. You can give right there on our YouTube channel as well. Again, folks, Your support makes it possible for us to do what you just experienced. And what you have just experienced is, again, the ability for us to be able to have a conversation that MSNBC, that CNN, that Fox News, that ABC, that NBC, that CBS, and all those other people not gonna have. All these other black people out here hollering about they new black media. They ain't doing it. In fact, my man sent me this here. I'm just gonna go ahead and say it because I don't really care. And there were a whole bunch of people who were talking lots of trash when we launched Roland Martin Unfiltered on September 4th, 2018. Folks were dogging us, saying y'all ain't gonna have nobody watch. That's real interesting because my man Keenan sent me, and he told me that wow, in the month of June we did 17.3 million views on YouTube alone in the month of June. That's more than some of our critics have had in their entire YouTube career. So the next time you try to challenge a brother like me, you might want to pump your brakes because I'm gonna embarrass you because this is why we do what we do. And so I don't worry about what everybody else do. We focus on what we do. And that's what this is all about. So please support us. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. We're going to give it up. And so we're going to close the show out. They're going to have the slideshow of all these images right here. Again, these are 4 of my 9 nieces. And so, see, it's real good where you shoot their photos so you ain't got to pay for photos. So, it's like, hey, send me that photo. And so just simply go to the slideshow we've been using. And so, Erica, Reese, Greg, I certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much. Folks, tomorrow, you do not want to miss tomorrow. Erica Alexander, she's a producer on that John Lewis documentary. We're talking to her tomorrow. And 1 hour, me and my frat brother, Dr. Cornel West. I told y'all, we ain't playing. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Holla! You want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. See that name right there? Roland Martin Unfiltered. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so when we go live, you'll know it.
Hey everybody, this is Sherry Shepherd. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered, and while he's doing Unfiltered, I'm practicing the wobble. So I am. Because Roland Martin's the one, he will do it backwards, he will do it on the side. He messes everybody up when he gets into the wobble, because he doesn't know how to do it, so he does it backwards. And it messes me up every single time. So I'm working on it. I got it. You got Roland Martin.
Hi, my name is LaToya Luckett, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Mac Wilds, and you are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
What's up, y'all? It's Ryan Destiny, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
What up, Lana Well, and you are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Hey fam, want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? The blackest show on all of digital, cable, and broadcast. Check out our audio podcast. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. Press play. Unfiltered.